time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day. So join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Losing is really easy. All you got to do is show up. You're going to guarantee you got a chance to lose. You can work as hard as you want, and there's no guarantee you're going to win. So being good is really, really hard. These kids are understanding that if they want to be good, they got to deal with hard. Not sometimes, not when they're in a good mood, every minute of every day.
Cool. What's been, I guess, your favorite new thing that you've come across, whether it's the ballpark, hitting facility, fan base, that's new to you about this program?
Well, clearly getting to meet with so many sports experts in a room such as this.
All right, little clip there from the Will Pelagic press conference earlier today over at USC.
I would have thought you would have loved it because you was slamming us.
As Coach Kingston couldn't get a word in edgewise between the questions.
Really? Is this how you're starting the program?
Welcome in, welcome in. Frank Martin is a man with a lot of deep thoughts. You know, he has a lot to say after a win last night over Florida. Quite unexpected, I think we could all say.
Yep.
77-72. The Gamecocks go into Gainesville and beat the 20th ranked team in the country with a really good, solid overall performance. Shot the ball decently, and I'm telling you, I mean, that's a simple statement from me, but I'm a person with a simple mind. When Silva plays well and stays on the court, this team has got a chance. He had 18 and 12 last night. His game is so much improved over last year. And then you can really see his leadership as well. He's become very vocal. You heard Frank Martin talk about that. Very noticeable last night that he was firing up his guys and exhorting them on and providing that leadership. This team is getting better and better now, and I guess part of that's because it's getting healthy.
We do this a lot in football, where we try to make a simple game seem very complicated, and really – I think we need to do the opposite when it comes to this game last night. Simply, when South Carolina makes shots and they defend, they get a good chance to win ball games. And they controlled what they control. You knew Florida was going to make a run at the beginning of the half, and they did. But South Carolina was able to withstand it, play tough defense. They didn't play defense on as many possessions as you would necessarily like, but they played it enough down the stretch. And the shots that were not falling for them earlier in the non-conference season, early in the SEC season, outside of a couple of days, finally we're getting hit. Wes Myers goes off with 22 points. They shoot 44% as a team. And when they're able to make shots, then defenders have to respect that on the outer perimeter. And also, that leaves Chris Silva open with single coverage on the inside. He can face up with the basketball. He can go one-on-one and have the kind of game like he had last night.
I still say if I'm Frank Martin, I'm going to pull out that section of the tape when they cut that 11-point lead down and Silva was on the bench. Because I want to say, look, see how y'all playing now, and Silva's not in the game, but we need him in the game. But I want you to see when we have to tread water, because they may not even be in that game if that period of 5 minutes when he was on the bench, they didn't cut that lead down, because psychologically Florida would go into halftime maybe with a double-digit lead. But they seem to be going inside, and look where the 3 points were coming from. Ostensibly, the ball went inside, guys set up, and they kicked it back for the three instead of just pulling up and just throwing it up, willy-nilly. And for whatever reason, defensively.
Or is that dilly-dilly?
Not the same. For whatever reason, South Carolina's defense for the last few games, I guess, 3 out of the last 4, Florida seems to be psyched out. They still fall in love with the 3 too much, but I thought South Carolina did a great job of getting those high caroms off the 3 and getting those rebounds. And Henson is starting to grow on me. He looks like a bull in a china shop out there, but with his girth. But apparently this guy's got good basketball instincts and quickness.
And they used the whole shot clock last night too, which was really cool. And again, you're not always going to get the best shots at the end of the shot clock. We saw a couple of shots that were low percentage shots that happened to go in, but They made Florida defend the entire 30 seconds, and it's not necessarily when Frank Martin talks about playing fast, it doesn't mean that you go in, you take the first shot that's available. You're able to move the ball quickly, and then you find the correct shot that is best for the offense at that time.
And if you saw Booker's stat line, if you just looked at his stat line, you would say they lost because he didn't score that much. But last night they didn't need him because Myers just went off.
Boy, Myers was terrific. Myers was terrific. Silva was terrific. And they won this game by kind of, well, withstanding the Florida run towards the end, but they also kind of pulled away in the last couple of minutes. It wasn't a helter-skelter kind of win for the Gamecocks. I mean, they made their free throws. Florida would come down and answer, and the Gamecocks would go back and score. They were able to put some baskets together and pull away there down the stretch and come away with a very nice road win. So this USC basketball team, which basically has been remade this year, look at the resume now. Road win at Georgia, road win at Florida, home win over Kentucky. Now, unfortunately, they got a couple of marks against them.
Yeah.
Home loss to Missouri, home loss to Tennessee. Tennessee's pretty good. Missouri.
Those are two tournament teams, though. More than likely.
You think Missouri?
Yeah.
I mean, Missouri got hammered last night at home by Auburn. I mean, it
7
was
teams are going to get in the tournament, and they should be one of them.
Yeah. So, but still, home losses, even against good teams, home losses do hurt. This Texas Tech game for them on Saturday outside the league be a good RPI game for them if they can pick up that win. Because Texas Tech is a good team. I'm not sure what their RPI is off the top of my head, but that'd be a good quality win for South Carolina outside of the league if they can get that.
I still say it comes down to the home and home against Auburn. They split it. I think they're in the tournament if they win 19 to 20 games. If they beat them both, they're in the tournament because Auburn is just tremendous. And I think really what happens is Bruce Pearl has got this world, us against the world attitude since that FBI probe came up, and they say he refuses to cooperate. I just think he's dealing with that right now.
Tech not very well liked by the RPI because of their out of conference strength of schedule. It's 195. That'll get an uptick with the game against South Carolina. There in the RPI around 20, 21, 22, depending on which metric you subscribe to there. But from their perspective, South Carolina, you can't change the past as far as that goes. Your bad losses are what your bad losses are. But so much about what the tournament committee does is they look at your last 10 games, and you're in that spot right now if you're South Carolina. If you can finish these last 10 games with enough quality wins, win the games you're supposed to, and steal a couple that you probably shouldn't be able to win, then you put yourself in the very good graces of the committee, and also a good showing in St. Louis wouldn't hurt.
All right, our phone number tonight here on Sports Talk. Love to get some feedback from you on the USC win last night. 800-956-7266. Feel free to dial us up and share your thoughts on that. We got a lot of great stuff for you tonight. We'll hear from Frank Martin, some of his thoughts after last night's win. Mike Morgan, who called the game on the SEC Network, will join us as well. Also, more basketball in hour number 2, another session of Give and Go with Jordan Roper and Aaron Lucas. We'll do baseball tonight, too, as baseball practice begins tomorrow. You heard Chad Holbrook with us last night. His replacement at USC, Mark Kingston, met with the media today. We'll bring you some of what he had to say. One thing about Mark Kingston, from what I've been able to sense from him in my limited access to him, he is a different type of thinking college baseball coach than we have seen at South Carolina, and for that matter at Clemson. I mean, you go back to the days of June Raines, Bill Wilhelm, Ray Tanner, Jack Leggett, now Monty Lee there, Chad Holbrook, and now Mark Kingston. Those previous guys I mentioned, except for Monty, but Monty, I think, is a little more old school. All old school, coach by the gut feeling kind of baseball managers. Kingston, kind of that new age analytical metrics kind of baseball coach.
He loves his numbers now. He loves numbers. He says he loves shifts, and he loves the analytics. And that's the direction that this game is going, whether you like it or you don't.
I don't.
I know you don't.
I still say they go for the gut.
I know you don't, but
those same guys who say they use analytics, they still go for the gut.
If you don't like it, then you don't like to win.
I like to win.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Analytically speaking, the more I talk, the better our ratings are. That's what the analytics say about Sports Talk. 800-956-7266. Let's go to Tim in Lexington, get things rolling. Got a lot of stuff coming your way tonight. Tim, welcome into Sports Talk tonight. How are you, sir? Hello, Tim. I hear movements.
Tim,
talk to us.
Tim going once.
All right, let's put him on hold and we'll come back. Oh, there you go. Hello. Tim? Okay, we got a bad something. Got a bad cell, bad connection. Give us a call back or drop the line and we'll clear the way for somebody else. 800-956-7266. USC women going to tip it off at the bottom of the hour against Arkansas. And then those really mean people from Missouri come in on Sunday to play USC women. They got some news on the USC women this afternoon?
Yes, this is something that's been talked about on our program for the last couple of months. People were asking about it, and the NCAA has finally made a ruling that Taya Cooper will not be eligible to play this year. She transferred to South Carolina from Tennessee over the summer. She sat out the 16-17 season due to injury. NCAA waiver was filed by USC to try and possibly get her eligible immediately. They did not file it until semester. They wanted to get her first semester grades in to possibly give her a better chance to get eligible, but the NCAA ruled that she will not play this year and have two eligibility years remaining beginning with next season. There's another precedent with a young lady out of Notre Dame who filed her transfer papers and filed her waiver papers over the summer. They got her eligible. USC was trying to use that same formula basically with Cooper, but no dice, according to the folks who sit on the high perch in Indianapolis.
All right, 800-956-7266. Recruiting coming up a little later. USC's recruiting weekend actually getting off to an early start. Tell you about that in recruiting. Tiger on the course out in San Diego, as he now is coming back full-time on the PGA Tour, even par, as he approaches the 18th. He's playing the South Course in the at Torrey Pines, place that he loves, of course, where he grew up, literally in youth golf, playing those courses there in San Diego. So we'll keep you up to date on that and update the leaderboard here in a little bit. Let's hit the phones again. Daniel in Charleston. Welcome in, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Phil?
Man, we're great.
All right, excellent. So I want to give a big, shout out and congratulations to the Gamecocks win against Florida. I've got a question I've been kind of wanting to ask for a good part of the season. With Chris Silva, I know he's got another year. He's a junior. But I watch him and I can't really figure out if he's an NBA talent or not. I wonder what your take on it is. It's almost like he's big, he's really big and physical, but is he agile, athletic enough to make it in the NBA? And I'll hang up and listen.
All right. Thank you. None of us here are pro basketball scouts, but you look at a guy, the intangibles with him, I think really stand out. His work ethic, his dedication. Remember where he was as a freshman and look at where he is now. He has gotten his foul issues somewhat under control. Free throw shooter, a guy that size, this is what tells me something, Pro. A guy that size who makes free throws like he does tells me he's got the skills to be a good outside shooter if necessary. But he can also back you down and score around the rim, and he's a tenacious rebounder and a heck of a defender too.
Well, even if a kid goes to college 3 or even to 4 years, Phil, we've seen it before. NBA players do not come in and are successful because they are complete. You see guys add little things to their game, even in their 10th year in the league, if they last that long. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Even this year, Frank Martin during the offseason had Silva working on his 3-point shot because he's got a good form to it. and he can handle the basketball, Will, from within the 12 to 15 feet of the basket and get by defenders, and he can block shots on the other end.
Yeah, he'll need to show NBA GMs that he can hit the perimeter jumper and create a shot on his own, because that's so much about what the NBA is these days. And the other part of it, too, is that you have to, I think, bulk up with the kind of upper body strength because of the physical nature in the NBA. I know that there's an old fallacy out there that people say that the NBA doesn't play defense. It's quite the contrary. They actually play a more physical style of defense than they play even in college, and a lot of the rules dictate that.
You'll love that.
A lot of
those whistles won't be
a lot of the rules dictate from that perspective that you need to be able to bang and bruise down there. So he'll have to develop those types of skills as well. But as we say all the time, if you can rebound, if you can defend, and you can hit shots, NBA roster.
I think so. Thank you for your call. 800-956-7266, our number. If you want to jump in with us.
Big if with him.
Well, I mean, he's got another year to develop. And, I mean, Sindarius Thornwell, saw him play last night a little bit for the Clippers against the Celtics. Didn't play all that well, I didn't think, but didn't get a whole lot of time. He has had some starts this year for the Clippers, but the point is that he made himself into an NBA second-round draft pick, and he earned a spot on a team. So that's the goal, that's the dream, and he was able to do it. Silva has, I think, some tremendous upside.
He's got a ceiling. He's definitely got a ceiling.
A ceiling or an upside?
A high ceiling. He's got a high ceiling.
Got a high ceiling, yeah. But, I mean, I think he's got tremendous upside, and I think he's only going to get better. I think he's showed between his freshman year and now his junior year, in 3 years, how far he can come in developing his game. All right, back to the phones we go. Bill in Somerville. Billy in Somerville, actually. Hello, Billy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
First of all, I want to give a shout out to the Carolina basketball team. I thought that was a good one for them, off and all. And I'm going to make a comment, and I'm going to listen. And it's not supposed to be anything negative, but I'm tired of hearing shows where the South Carolina's basketball teams, even in the mediocre year after last year, and they beat the top 20 team, there's still negativity when they win. If Clemson wins over a top 20 team this year, everybody's all over and they want to just run their mouth, and then they have an awful Purnell show on top of it on a conference call. And I don't think it's right, because that was a huge win for South Carolina as well as the basketball program goes for this year. And I'm tired of Clemson bias, and I'll hang up and listen.
Okay.
I don't know if we're.
Did I hear Oliver Purnell mentioned in there? Did he say?
I think he tried to say Oliver Purnell when he meant to say Brad Brownell.
Brad Brownell, yeah.
But
so I'm still trying to figure out what the comment was.
I think what he's trying to say.
Surprised a little bit that South Carolina won.
I think that
last night.
I don't know if he was necessarily calling us out. I think he was calling out possible other player or other people who might speak negatively about the Gamecocks, even in victory. I think we've been rather positive throughout the first 22 minutes of our radio program. We will say, honestly, we were shocked by the win. I think anybody who covers this team, I was texting with multiple people and I even called you last night. We were all very
well. They
surprised.
Were only a 10.5-point underdog. All right. So we weren't the only ones who thought that South Carolina was not going to win last night at Florida. I mean, Florida is a nationally ranked team playing at home.
And here's the thing. You can't definitively say that South Carolina is a better team than Florida. They were on that night, and they played better on that night, but I don't think anybody is trying to sit here and argue that Florida is not a better team than South Carolina. Empirically, they have more talent. Now, they won on a game on the same floor, and they were able to play better than them, and they were able to do the kinds of things they needed to do to win. The other problem with that is that South Carolina has not, on a variety of times this season, we've seen them play against competition we think that they belong against, has not done that. They probably should have won the game against Tennessee if they would have played the way that they played last night. And there are other games across this SEC season. Heck, the game against Missouri, they flat out quit in the second half.
Well, Gamecocks have a chance if they can build on the win over Florida. They can put a little bit of a streak together here. Texas Tech at home. All right. I think that would be a potential home win for them, even though Texas Tech is nationally ranked, 14th. Mississippi State at home. Okay. Then you go to A&M, which is not a great year.
A&M's up and down.
Then you go to Arkansas, which has had its struggles.
Tough place to play, though.
Okay. So those are games coming up before you come back home to play Florida again, which could really be a huge game if the Gamecocks can take care of some business there.
Wouldn't sleep on that game at Arkansas. That is a very, very tough place
no
to
doubt.
play.
All right. We'll be right back. Morgan on the move coming up. Thursday night edition of Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network from downtown Columbia. Hope you had a great day. We thank you for tuning in to us, turning over to us from where else you were listening to. You've come to the right place here as we continue on this Thursday. Very busy Thursday night with some basketball, some baseball for you, some recruiting as well coming up in just a little bit, and more of your phone calls. However, right now it's time for another exciting edition of Morgan on the Move, starring Mike Morgan, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union, where their mortgage team is more equipped than ever to help you with the mortgage process, and by BP Skinner Clothiers, where people nationwide get their custom-made suits and accessories from Brent Skinner, the very best in suits, shirts, pants, shoes, and more, available to you. To set up an appointment, go to their website, bpskinnerclothiers.com. All right, Mikey joining us now. He was on the call last night down in Gainesville as USC surprised the Gators. You made the comment during the broadcast you think this is Frank Martin's best coaching job.
I do. And, you know, it's not something I came into the broadcast really thinking about, to be honest with you. It just kind of struck me at the end of that game and just watching, you know, what Florida has, watching what South Carolina has personnel-wise, you know, watching some of the South Carolina win over Kentucky. I called the South Carolina win at Georgia. It's not a team that's chock full of much in terms of individual talent, to be honest with you. I mean, you got one guy in Chris Silva that opposing coaches truly game plan for, and they double and triple team the heck out of him, as Florida did last night. And then you've got journeyman, grad transfers, guys that were not highly recruited, guys that are still playing out of position, guys that are still learning the game. And somehow, in the best year and the deepest year of this conference in over a decade, South Carolina sits 4-4 in the thick of it and still in the discussion, at least, for the NCAA tournament. That, to me, is even more impressive than a Final Four run, which had, you know, a couple of guys that had NBA games and a senior to complement them and notice, and, of course, Silva as well. I think he's done much more with less than any other coach in this league this year.
So last night, what really stood out to you? Was it Wesley Myers and his performance? Was it Silva and his double-double? Was it the way the Gamecocks played some good defense in the final minutes and kept Florida from making a finishing run?
2 out of the 3. Silva, I've just come to expect. I mean, he's in beast mode all year long, and he's so hard to defend and has really added some polish to his game to where he's just very hard to stop and shut down when he doesn't foul out. Mm-hmm. The other 2 guys, though, Wesley Myers, I don't know where that came from. I mean, that is by far and away the best I've seen that kid play all year long. You know, at one point, he hit 5 consecutive threes. He's beating people off the bounce. He's dropping dimes. I mean, that's not what I saw at Wesley Myers for much of the year. And if you remember, I mean, he basically is a converted point guard that had to take over that role after, you know, Gravitt got hurt and they had Holden got hurt. And so it was almost like a help wanted, you know, auditions for point guard. And he kind of assumed the role, but that's not necessarily his forte. He's a transfer from Maine, and I don't know. I didn't expect a whole lot from him, to be honest with you, this year. And he was terrific. I mean, they don't win the game without him last night. He was outstanding. And the other thing that you mentioned is you always expect good defense from a Frank Martin team, but I thought last night they really, Florida, particularly at home, they could just shoot you right out of the building. They're so fluid offensively. It's so many different guys that can shoot. And I haven't seen Florida look that uncomfortable offensively in a long time, and so much of that had to do with the defense that Frank Martin's squad employed.
Last night, Mike, is it a harbinger of good things to come and possibly a sign of them turning around, or are nights like last night and last week against Kentucky standalone anomalies?
I'm not willing to go that, you know, this is a turn the corner moment and look out now. They've caught fire and this is going to be a streak where they go win 5 out of 6. That to me, that's a little too reactionary. That's a little too prisoner of the moment. Let's see how they do against Texas Tech, who is a very good team, one of the surprise teams in the country. I want to see how they do in that matchup. And then I'll be back in Columbia next Wednesday for one of those games where when you see Mississippi State in the schedule, you don't, that's not one of those show-stopping games. But that's a game, if you're not careful, you can lose. And again, this Carolina team is not good enough to just show up and beat anybody in this conference. They have to play well night in, night out, and certainly Frank knows that.
Mike, you've done enough games and you've seen enough basketball to know, especially in college basketball, guys so young, anything can spark a team psychologically. And ever since the signing of Bowen, Raffelder gets back, these guys are in practice pushing these guys. It just, in your estimation, how much is just hitting the practice floor and having guys talented enough to challenge you extends to the court when you go into real action?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that a whole lot, Pro, but I think the Raffelder one in particular, I know Frank really likes Raffelder, the player. Now, Raffelder, the person, has needed some fixing. But having Raffelder around the program and as you mentioned, being able to work out with the team, yeah, I think that does add something. Even though he's not going to play this year, having him as part of your program again, psychologically can do some good things, and working against Raffelder in practice could do some good things as well. So your point's a valid one.
All right, so after the action this week so far, look who's atop the league. Auburn at 6-1, Florida 6-2, Kentucky and Tennessee and Alabama 5-3, and then the group of three at 500, 4-4, USC, Arkansas, and Ole Miss. So still kind of bunched up there, but Auburn, a nice road win for the Tigers last night. They really hit Missouri with a hard shot there in the second half, put together a nice run and pulled away. So Bruce Pearl's team, despite not having a couple of players he expected to have, continues to play at a very high level. About halfway through the conference slate, is Auburn here to stay the rest of this season? Yes.
I don't think they're going to hit some major wall. This was flukish, or nobody saw them coming. But now the people are going to figure out how to, what the soft underbelly of Auburn is and crack the code. I don't see that because everybody knows what Auburn is. Auburn doesn't beat people based on their scouting report. Auburn beats people on, they got a bunch of good athletes who play hard, who defend extremely well, can run the floor. None of these guys are lottery picks. But you know what? When you go back to Tennessee and Bruce Pearl, who made the big dance 6 times in 6 years, he didn't have a bunch of lottery picks there either. He didn't have a bunch of first-round NBA picks. He just had a bunch of guys that fit his system, and he knew how to win with them. It took 3 years for him to get enough guys that fit his system, and now he's winning with them. And no, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they're going to be in the thick of this race, which is going to be a terrific race. I think they'll be in the thick of it to the very end. Okay, U.S. women up on Arkansas 16-4 in the first quarter. About a minute. Baseball practice begins tomorrow everywhere. Who's your pick to win the SEC? Oh, goodness. Off the top of my head, I'll say Arkansas. Oh, I know they have a lot of guys coming back. And the kid Knight came back when everybody thought he would go pro. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Florida's going to be right up there and everybody's list. And they're going to be good again. But ask me that question in a month, I'll have a much more educated answer. But for right now, I'll give you Arkansas. Arkansas. Okay.
Kentucky also very highly touted as well.
Okay, yes. Mike, we thank you so much, my man. Have yourself a great rest of the week and weekend. We'll see you next week here in Columbia and here on Sports Talk. You got it. Thank you, Mike Morgan. Morgan on the move with us here on Sports Talk. We'll be back. More calls and recruiting coming up.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
All right, USC women having their way with Arkansas 25-6. They're still in the first quarter, 1:01 to go. USC shooting 61% from the floor.
Sneaky good.
They are red hot. Wilson's got 9 and 4 rebounds. Jackson's got 7. Jennings has 6 for USC. So, lady game. Hang on.
Yeah, so you're not supposed to say that.
Not say that. I'm just slipped back into my old habits.
Okay.
The USC women on their way to a big win tonight, and then they got the
Gers.
I have another name I'd like to use for the Missouri women's basketball team, but it probably wouldn't be properly received.
Wouldn't be couth. Would be very
starts with
uncouth
a
of you.
B and has to do when you have to scratch something.
Oh, is
You
that
know.
what it is?
Is that a fact?
Well, they're just very not nice, not very nice ladies from Missouri.
What do you know? Are you listening to Cloninger again? Is
I'm
that
just
what you're
based
doing?
on what I've heard.
No,
Various
he's talking about the
reports.
call the other night, talking about the big woman shaking her rump. That's what he's
Whatever.
Missouri plays.
Thinking her Chris Rump.
Missouri does not play a non-aggressive style. They play a very aggressive style of basketball.
See, and all I hear about is Midwestern values. Don't hear that coming out of Missouri.
I never purported to ever think that was actually a thing. That's something that old men who are older than you try to
part of Midwestern
try
values
to
is getting your shot off,
propagandize into people's mouths.
and that means you have to make some space. And sometimes that means the subway shove.
Let's go to Kim.
Something I've learned about being all across this fair world.
Kim.
People are very provincial in
Kim.
their own environment.
Hello, Kim. Kim in Spartanburg, please speak. Hello.
Bill.
Hey.
Yes, I enjoy. I haven't been able to get to listen to every show, but I'd love to get y'all's take on the idea. I may be the only Gamecock guy that doesn't like Frank Martin. I don't like his courtside manner. I think it's undignified. I'm, got a pedigree going back to where I was sat on the sidelines watching, Frank McGuire.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what, dignity looks like. I know what hard play looks like. I know what good coaching looks like. But Frank Martin's, courtside manner to me is very undignified. And I think because of it, there are people that won't even consider the school because of him, the way he acts.
And Frank Martin's attitude.
Take on that.
Frank Martin's attitude is he doesn't want anybody who can't handle it.
Well, look, he has a brand. He has the Frank Martin, whether he likes it or not. I'm not saying he's not trying to sell himself or make any money off of it, but he has a brand. Frank Martin has been branded from his days at Kansas State when he became the head coach there. It was the stare. It's the anger. It's the yelling at the players. But you know what? And I bristle sometimes as an observer when I see Martin jump on a player. On the one hand, I bristle a little bit. On the other hand, I appreciate it because to me, that's good old school coaching. And I know today's kids don't like to be coached that way. When we were coming along, that's how you were coached. Coaches were physical with you. They put hands on you. They put shoes on you. They had no trouble, no qualms about roughing you up if you were an athlete. And if you didn't get that kind of action from your coach, it's because he didn't think you were worth wasting the time to try to mold into a player. Coaches coach up players who they think they can develop and make into successful players, and let's make them into successful coaches. So Martin has that style. Every player he recruits knows his brand, okay? And they know what they're getting into. In fact, when you talk to them in recruiting and they commit to South Carolina, one of the questions you ask is now, how do you feel about his style of coaching? Can you handle it? And then they all say to a man, I want to be coached and I want to be coached hard. And what it does It's sort of like a boot camp. If you get through it and survive it, you become a part of that Frank Martin family, and the players swear by him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, the players truly love him and swear by him, and you can see by players coming back, being a part of the program. I mean, I know it looks to those on the outside who aren't used to it, it looks kind of rough, and I guess it can be, but at least he's fair about it across the board. Every player who messes up, whether you're Silva or you're Tommy Corciani, if you mess up, you're going to get a look and an earful from Frank Martin, because that's just the way he coaches.
Also, you'll be very surprised that if you look at his record in the Big 12 and his record so far in the SEC, have you ever heard him get a technical foul in a game?
Mm-mm.
He doesn't scream at officials.
And the thing
he
about
doesn't do that.
Frank Martin, like, I don't think people understand, and this is, again, people only get part of the story with him. He inspires guys to run through a brick wall for him, and he's able to inspire hard work. And again, I don't want to make it sound like we're throwing out the PR party for Frank Martin.
No.
But here's the thing.
He is.
I mean, I've followed Frank Martin ever since his first year at Kansas State, because he used to play Missouri home and home every year in the Big 12, and I've seen him obviously here as well, and I've gotten to know Frank in other spots as well. And when you talk to former players, going all the way back to his time at Kansas State, guys like Jacob Pullen, Angel Rodriguez, Bill Walker, Michael Beasley, guys here in South Carolina, Dwayne Notice, who's back with the program now, they all love him, because at the end of the day, while he has a very hard exterior that many people see on the sideline, he has a very kind interior, and he loves his players.
I don't think he can coach any other way.
No, he couldn't.
I mean, his DNA is just that way. It's, he was brought up hard, and as an athlete, he had to play that way. Probably was the dirtiest guy on the court, probably a lot of elbows, a lot of knees, I would imagine. It's what he had to do to survive, and it's carried over to his coaching, but it's made him stand out. There's 350 some odd Division I coaches,
right?
Okay. Very few of them, I mean, the winning coaches, they stand out because of their success. Now, listen, you sit behind Mike Krzyzewski's bench.
Right.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Mm-mm.
He just does it a different way.
Right.
Okay.
Very passive aggressive almost.
You sit behind Patino's bench. You sit behind Calipari. I imagine even Roy Williams has a few things come out of his mouth from time to time. They all have their style. Frank has made himself into a brand,
right,
without having perennial national championship contending teams. Good teams at Kansas State and some good teams at South Carolina, a team last year that made a surprising run. It's made him, his coaching style has made him a figure in college basketball. And I'll say this too. It seems like coach that goes up against him or deals with him has great respect for him.
And here's the thing that Kim probably doesn't like, because of the fact that he's saying this, is that it is attention getting. His style of coaching draws attention, and it draws national eyeballs. And while you might not like the reasoning for it, there's no such thing as bad press. And it's not like he's, abusing guys. He's not like he's going out and hitting them like Bob Knight used to allegedly do. He's doing so in a manner of saying, this is how I expect you to play when you play for me at the University of South Carolina. And if you don't like his sideline demeanor, well, how do you feel about Will Muschamp's sideline demeanor? Because he's a lunatic on the sideline, too.
I tell you what, I would tell Kim, if he gets the opportunity, walk up to Frank Martin and speak to him. I've heard some people tell me when he first got here, I'm scared to walk up to him. That guy looks frightening. He's a teddy bear.
Of course.
Once you meet him. He really is.
Yeah, I think that again, I know you as a fan, Kim, calling in and seeing it, it makes your skin crawl sometimes, but that is what South Carolina signed up for when they hired Frank Martin. They're getting exactly what he has been and what he is, and it's working out well for South Carolina. All right, we'll be back, top of the hour break. Getting close on 16,000. Well, let's make sure we mention Dory O'Daniel being out. Yes. Still no luck? Keep trying them. Please. Oh, did I not put ST recruiting on here? Douchebag corn. Mm-hmm. I hate when I make do it. The girl from transfer from Penn State is not playing on. What is her name? That's the best 3-point shooter. Carolina? Mm-hmm. Lindsey Spanner. They go to a funeral tomorrow. I'm sorry. Yeah. Mother of one of our former babysitters. What was that?
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show. 800-956-7266.
Okay, welcome back. If you're in the Columbia area, you still have time to get over to CLA to catch the second half of an exciting women's basketball game. 39-10, USC over Arkansas. 1:43 to go in the half. Arkansas, 5 of 28 from the floor. That's 18% for those of you in the analytics. USC 17 of 34. Wilson's got 15 and 6.
I bet you were the same kind of person who hated the internet when it first came out, too.
Let's go to a little give and go here on Sports Talk. We've got the giver. We don't have the goer tonight. Jordan Roper is with us, trying to catch up with Aaron Lucas. How would you defend Asia Wilson? If she posted you up down low, how would you defend her?
Well, I would do my best not to let her, get the ball down low. But I mean, if she got it down there, she wouldn't score.
You'd ask for help. Come on now.
Now, would you just? She's left-handed.
I would definitely ask for help.
She's left-handed. Would you just play her off her left hand and try to force her to go the other way, or is she so good that she could score on you either way?
Well, you have to. I mean, like I said, you have to do your best not to let her get the ball down there. I mean, I'm a smaller guy, so I'm, going to be that pestering guy that's always, fronting and trying to make you catch the ball in different ways. So
yeah.
But yeah, you definitely want to try to let them use their other hand. But I mean, she's big time talent. So
indeed, she is. All right, so we'll talk with you about the Tigers and okay, the air coming out of the balloon here a little bit. Great win over Notre Dame, but you lose Grantham, then you go up to Virginia, and they shut the Tigers down that second half. They got to go to Georgia Tech Sunday. I know you've probably been talking to the folks and getting some insight. What are they trying to do to not let that air go all the way out of the balloon here?
Well, I mean, you really have to focus on Georgia Tech. I mean, this isn't a ball club that that's a cakewalk or a walk in the park. Preseason they were projected to be an NCAA tournament team, and losing one of their best players and not getting off to the start that they had hoped for. But they're still a good basketball team with a lot of talent. And Coach Pastner is a great coach, college basketball, young guy, young, energetic guy. So, I mean, I know that Coach Brownell and the staff are not going to overlook this game. They're going to stress the importance of, that Georgia Tech game, especially going down to Atlanta.
We have, of course, the Gamecock guard, Aaron Lucas, of course, joining us here as well. I almost said Lewis, pardon me. Easier for me to say, Aaron. But as far as the Gamecocks go, a big victory last night over Florida. And I tell you what, it surprised all of us. Number one, did it surprise you? And what did you notice differently from the Gamecocks?
Well, it didn't surprise me that they were capable or able to go into the swamp and come out with a victory. I think you got to look at the chemistry and the way guys have been playing over the last 4 games to know that this team is starting to really gel and come together, and that leadership that we talked about early on in the season is starting to come into play.
What do you think of Myers last night and the way he has emerged here since SEC play started? Not just his scoring, because he came to South Carolina with that reputation, but his floor game is improving and his leadership on the floor is improving.
Well, again, it goes back to bringing in a whole new crop of guys who come from a different system, obviously have to learn Frank Martin and his staff way of thinking and the attitude that goes along with being a South Carolina Gamecock. And it took some time for him to have to understand that culture. But, unfortunately, Hassani Gravett, went down with the injury, and that time on the floor really, really helped Wes Myers gain a lot of confidence and, put himself in a leadership role to be able to run that team.
Well, still, it looks like their formula is, boy, if they just could shoot 43 to 44%, they're going to win about 80, 85% of their games because they do all the little intangibles. But the key point is Chris Silva. Have you noticed any ways he has changed his style? And it seems to me that he's avoided the cheap foul in the last 4 games against most of these teams that's been ranked in order to be on the floor at what we call winning time in the last 5 minutes of these ball games.
Well, again, I think he understands his value to the team, and you're watching the maturation of a player that has learned and is growing, and has the coaching staff as well as the players that still believe in his ability and his leadership to be on the floor. He's starting to understand every shot may not be a shot I need to go block, or every charge I need to try to go take may not be the perfect opportunity. So he's starting to grow as a player, and I think the success the team has had in these last couple of games has been due to him being on the floor, providing offense and defense by him just playing smarter.
Give and go with Jordan Roper and Aaron Lucas. Okay, guys, you know what it's like. It's that time of the year. You take every game, you check the bracketology, primarily of Joe Lunardi, but some of the others out there as well. And Jordan, after the Tigers' loss in the games this week so far, he's got Clemson still, of course, in the tournament solidly as a number 4 seed playing Loyola Chicago in Boise. Do you feel like with the loss of Grantham that they can hold it together and still ride this thing all the way into the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a more positive guy when it comes to things like that. I think they can. I mean, the losses that they've had so far have been just tough opponents, really good basketball teams that are also having, stellar years. I think, we still have enough experience on the floor, enough guys with talent on the team that, we'll be able to handle the games that we should be able to take care of. And we have on the flip side, we have enough. If we get to 20 wins, we have the marquee wins, I feel. Maybe if we can get one more somehow, get into the tournament and be a solid, season.
We obviously know the players who are taking the place of Grantham, and it's hard to take his place, but how do the Tigers, Jordan, have to play differently without Dante Grantham on the floor?
I wouldn't say it's anything different in terms of playing style, but you do lose a versatile guy that, 6'9", that can push the floor, can pass, and, really, cause a matchup problem for a lot of other teams. And I think that's what was exploited against Virginia. They don't have to focus on that matchup problem that Dante Grantham is. I mean, we have Amir Sims, who's a freshman. It will potentially become a matchup problem for teams, but right now he just hasn't developed into the player that he's going to be, which is going to be a really good basketball player. And then David Scarr, he's more of a defensive-minded player and rebounding guy. So you're missing that component of a complete player that can cause a matchup problem on the offensive end of the floor.
Aaron, we'll ask you to look at your bracketology from the Gamecock standpoint. And Jerry Palm, in his bracket earlier this week, had the Gamecocks in the tournament. That was before they beat Florida. So can you see them building on this Florida win and working their way into the tournament field?
Absolutely. I think we have to look at the factors. As Jordan mentioned, you get to 20 wins, that's kind of the golden number. And with road wins at Georgia, Honestly, a home win against Kentucky and going to a tough environment at Florida and coming out with a win. Also playing Tennessee pretty tough. I think it's starting to come together for this team. The factor that helps is that they made that run last year to the Final Four. It's almost kind of saying that you gave us a chance. We did a good job with it, and we look forward to getting another opportunity. So if the team can continue to pull together some wins on the road as well as at home, I think once they get to 20, I think they're definitely in.
Yeah. This was a follow-up on a caller we had earlier tonight, Aaron. Did Eddie Fogler ever yell at you?
Yeah. Yale might be a understatement, but again, when you have tough coaches, I think Jordan can probably attest to this as well. When you have tough coaches that want the best out of you, they're going to do every method. They're going to use every method possible to pull out everything you have. And so that was Coach Fogler's style, and I think that's Coach Frank Martin's style as well. And I think he's getting the most out of his players.
Guys, we thank you so much for being with us tonight. Great stuff, as always. Have yourself a great rest of the week and weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Aaron Lucas, Jordan Roper. Go and give. Give and go. Here on Sports Talk. Back in a moment.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, most listened to, most followed, most talked about, most discussed sports talk show in South Carolina every single night. Glad you're with us. We remind you to check out foundersfcu.com. Learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. Quick update from over at USC. It's really getting tight over there. Halftime, 44-12. USC women leading Arkansas, and big half for Wilson was 16-7. Jackson's got 11 points, and the Gamecocks are on their way to another SEC win, getting ready for Missouri to come to Columbia on Sunday. Let's jump to Ned in Charleston. Got some recruiting coming your way. Frank Martin as well. Hello, Ned. How are you?
Hey, guys. How are y'all doing tonight?
We are doing great. Thank you.
I don't get to listen as frequently as I would like, but I think you guys do a great job, and I love the show. And I'm sure y'all have said it somewhere along the line, but I have a question about Jordan Roper, and then I wanted to make a comment about the new XFL. As a Clemson alum, I really enjoy when I do get to listen and hear Jordan on, and I'm just curious, what's he doing now? Is he teaching, coaching? What's he up to these days?
He's making money. He's in the money business. He works for, I think it's Merrill Lynch. He's in the financial business.
Okay, fantastic. I was just curious as to what he was doing these days because I heard him on the show.
Yeah.
In regards to the XFL, this is Vince McMahon. This is wrestling. It is the XFL. I think what they ought to do is, one, to try and help ticket sales, local interest, regional TV ratings. I think they need to try and make sure that each team kind of has its drafting rights geographically. So you're getting guys from the area to help build the team, and hopefully to be guys that are, marginal NFL guys that didn't make it, maybe practice squad type guys, where they can use this as a developmental league to maybe eventually make it to the NFL. And with that in thought, I doubt Charlotte will get a team since there's only going to be 8. So I'm thinking in the South that it'll probably be Atlanta. Well, if that's the case, then the middle starting linebacker absolutely, positively needs to be Ben Boulware. And with Ben Boulware and wrestling in mind, I have a great new rule that will separate the XFL from the NFL. As you guys have seen, Boulware has gotten a few personal fouls over the years for his rough tackling. He's been known to suplex a few guys on the field. Well, I think in the XFL, if you suplex a guy as making a tackle, instead of a 15-yard penalty, the offense ought to lose 15 yards.
Hold it against him, huh?
That's right. If the other team, if your player is such a wuss, and he gets suplexed on the field, then you should lose 15 yards instead of him being flagged for making one hell of a defensive play.
Here's what I worry about. I don't know what their rules are going to be. I haven't read anything about it today. Have anybody here, have you read up on it?
They're going to make players stand for the anthem.
Well, besides that, I'm all for that. They shouldn't have to have a rule for that, but that's another discussion. No, what I'm worried about is further invasion into the high school ranks. I wouldn't be surprised if they had no rules about taking players coming out of high school who maybe didn't want to go to college.
One thing that he did say
and
today
paying them handsome money
is they're not going to act like a competitor to the NFL, and that they're going to do a lot of listening over the course of the next 3 years. The biggest problem that they had when they did it the first go around was that they announced the league and then they decided to play the next year. They had no time for development, no time for research, no time for actual building of a team. So they're going to take the next year and formulate some rules, formulate guidelines, and kind of figure out exactly what they want to be before obviously putting the teams together in 2019 for play in 2020.
Did they say anything about eligibility, where they're going to go get their players?
I think he's open. Honestly.
I mean, when you say open, are we talking how open?
I think he's open to players that are able to play at a high level. I don't think he's necessarily going to limit it to guys who are outside of college.
Is there an age limit? Is there an age limit like the NFL
hasn't
has?
I'm telling you no, but I'm saying that Vince McMahon is anything's possible.
Exactly. That's what concerns me.
Well, anything's possible, but I have my finger right on that little lever to flush the toilet, just like I flushed the XFL the last time. It's a bunch of crap. Vince McMahon, stay in wrestling.
That's how you flush the toilet, bro?
Is there a television network involved?
He says that he's going to do a multi-platform approach. He's not necessarily going to make it an exclusive thing.
Make it a what?
Exclusive. He's not going to make it exclusive.
Like NASCAR, he's going to spread it out over several networks.
He says he's all open.
That's just
basically,
right.
He doesn't sound like he really has a lot of answers to the questions you're asking right now because of the fact that they're not playing until 2020. But he just wants to get the glam and the glitz. And the real interesting thing about it is the fact that the NFL's labor deal is up in the year 2020. So there could be a bargaining chip from the NFL Players Association in that regard.
All right, let's hear from Frank Martin, Gamecock basketball coach, coming off the win last night down at Florida. Had some good things to say. Obviously very pleased by his team's performance, going down and knocking off the Gators on their home court.
Guys are learning. We've been able to practice. I don't try to make stuff up. From December 28th to whatever day in January was after the Alabama loss, we had 7 or 8 guys in practice, and it's hard. And most of them are first-year guys and freshmen, and they don't. You got to rep them so they get what's going to happen in league play. Now, since that day, we've had a full squad now at practice. And, Wes, think about this. Everyone's asking Wes why he's playing so well. He's had to guard Rakim Felder in practice. So he's dealing with Rakim. Rakim and, Brian Bowen, and they're in practice now. Hassan, by the way, Hassani had the flu, so he didn't practice the last 2 days. When he showed up, when was it? What's today? I don't even know days. He showed up Monday and he looked like he'd been hit with a sledgehammer. I just started laughing. I said, what else can go wrong? And he tested positive for the flu, but the fever broke late Monday night. So we allowed him to travel yesterday. He gave it a go and shoot around. He felt okay, but he hadn't practiced, but give him credit. He stepped up. And Frank Booker, Frank hasn't played well in the last 7 or 8 days. Games are practice. And I was real hard on him early in the game today. Give him credit for responding the way he did. Makes a 3, makes his free throws, takes a charge on I can't remember who it was off the dribble. Made productive plays to help us win.
Frank, how much did the shooting open things up late, particularly for Silva and Kotsar, and how much did it give you guys kind of a lift?
That's why I don't say a lot of stuff, because then I got to answer the rest of the year why what I said didn't work. But I said before the season, this is one of the best shooting teams, if not the best shooting teams that I've coached. Well, I'm around them. I see them make shots. The problem is that when you play in the SEC, the other teams don't cooperate with allowing you to shoot. So you actually have to learn how to set screens and cut and spacing and know when to attack. And our guys are learning that. And what happened is, because guys were making shots, it made it hard to go double Chris Silva on the low post. And we changed some of the stuff that we were doing to try and enter it to him. So it made rotations to double from where they were trying to double a little harder. It wasn't rocket science. It's just a little adjustment we made. But if we don't make shots, they don't come at our guys, and then it's hard to get Chris going inside.
You talked about kind of the need for better point guard play tonight. You faced one of the most proven point guards in the league, and Wes Myers scored 22 points for you. How big of a step was that for him tonight? What do you think of him in that night?
It just didn't happen today. He's been playing better and better. I've told you guys the other day, he's been playing better and better, and he's really starting to understand, and he's understanding how hard the players are. A lot bigger in the SEC than they are in the America East, at the guard spot, at the 2 guard, at the big, everything. So he's understanding strength, speed, size, all those things, and he's accepting coaching. So you know what? And he's learning to work at it.
All right, Frank Martin, following the Gamecocks' win last night at Florida. Got some nice wins going right now, as we mentioned earlier, at Georgia, at Florida, home win against Kentucky. Good opportunity to build some momentum and help, the overall look of the team. Maybe not the RPI, but the overall look with a win over Texas Tech, a ranked Texas Tech team on Saturday. Back in a moment. All right, it's now 59-16. Make that 60-16. Wilson with 19 and 12. She's gone over 1,000 rebounds in her career, and she went over 2,000 points, I think, last game. So USC women rolling it up on the Razorbacks in Columbia, 61-16, and there's still 5:43 to go in the third quarter. The Farmers Insurance Classic, or Open, San Diego at La Jolla, and The leader is Tony Finau playing the North Course. He's in at 7 under 65. Ted Potter, Ryan Palmer playing the South Course, 6 under 66. Tiger ended up at even par, 72. As far as locals, Bill Haas, a 69. Kyle Thompson, a 70. Good to see him back on the tour. Lucas Glover, a 72. Kyle Stanley, a 72. Jonathan Bird, a 73. And who else? Phil Mickelson had a 70 today. Jason Day had a 3. So this is the time when I start paying attention to the tour. I mean, it's only a couple of weeks in to this part of the season. I know their season never ends, it seems. Now they've started this fall season after the championship. Then they start their fall season, and I tend to forget about it. Then they play in Hawaii for a couple of weeks. Then they come to the West Coast. That's when I start getting interested.
Wake me in the first weekend in April.
Yeah, really.
Honestly.
This is true. This is true. But
wake me when it's
well, I'll tell you what now. I really enjoy Phoenix. I love watching the tournament in Phoenix or Scottsdale.
Do you? On Super Bowl Sunday? Is
I
that
love
what
it.
you enjoy?
Love it, man. Yeah. Don't you love watching 16 and
no
the stadium setting? Oh, it's fantastic.
No.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. No.
Let's
or
do,
as you would say, no.
Let's do recruiting here on Sports Talk. Okay. Can we do that?
No.
Because at least in recruiting, I am always under par. We begin with some basketball news. 6'4" Jermaine Couisnard, Montverde Prep in Florida, will announce his decision Saturday, 6 o'clock, going home to East Chicago, Indiana, to do it with family and friends. He's made his decision. He has notified the winning school. He says he really hasn't been worried about it because he's made his decision. Final schools, Louisville, South Carolina, and Illinois. He said he was looking for someone he could trust. He's been knowing the Illinois coaches for a while. He said the coaches at Louisville, he knows they're great coaches, and he said South Carolina the same. They've been recruiting him a lot. Each of them, he says, gives him an opportunity to play early. And he was in touch with all the schools as he was finalizing his decision. He said his last conversation with Frank Martin was Tuesday night. He's averaging 23 points and about 7 rebounds per game this season. So we'll see what he does. Now to football. North Carolina appears to have faded as USC and Georgia battle to the finish for defensive lineman Rick Sandage of Concord, North Carolina. That's the assessment of his coach, who watched from a very close position as Gamecock coaches and Bulldog coaches made strong pitches this week. Coach Glenn Padgett said, quote, I think it's Georgia and South Carolina. North Carolina is out of it. That's my gut, but crazier things have happened. He says, I can't give you an answer right now, and I don't think he can either. He's torn. They think both coaching staffs are great. They're trying to decide which one he's the best fit for, which one he can help be successful. So he's going to visit USC this weekend. He's already been to Georgia. He's already been to North Carolina. Coach is not expecting him to make his decision known until signing day. Defensive lineman John Mincy of Homerville, Georgia, is already on his way to USC to begin his official visit. Because of basketball, he will head back early on Saturday to Homerville. So his visit will be from technically tonight through tomorrow and leaving early on Saturday. He has been to Tennessee. He is scheduled to visit Florida State next weekend. USC coaches Lance Thompson and Travaris Robinson visited him earlier this week. Also in this week were coaches from Tennessee, Central Florida, Auburn, and Georgia. Auburn has come back on him hard, as has Arkansas. Tiger Illustrated reports defensive back Patrick Surtain will visit Clemson this weekend. He has visited Ohio State, LSU, and Alabama, and is scheduled to visit Miami next weekend. USC reportedly offered 2018 defensive lineman Jordan Miller of Jacksonville. He has been a Georgia Southern commit, but he's also picked up Tennessee and Virginia offers. He is scheduled to visit Virginia this weekend. USC busy on the offer front today. 2019 receiver Zion Puckett, Griffin, Georgia. 2021 offensive lineman William Griffin, Nashville. 2019 defensive end Jamin Graham of Atala, Alabama. 2019 offensive lineman Jalen Gumpton of Nashville. 2019 receiver Kenyon Jackson of Loganville, Georgia. 2020 athlete Kimani Vital of College Park, Georgia. USC and Clemson target linebacker Kalen DeLoach of Savannah was offered by Auburn. Place kicker Cliff Gandus of Christ Church, who performed in the Touchstone Energy North-South All-Star Game, has accepted a preferred walk-on offer from Georgia Tech. Dorman receiver Jacoby Pinckney was offered by Syracuse. Liberty place kicker Austin Kemp committed to South Carolina State. Offensive lineman Richard Gurridge of Tampa met with coaches from Florida Wednesday. Been a loose commitment to the Gators since the coaching change there. Clemson recruiter Tony Elliott is expected to visit Gurridge this week, and we do not know of an official visit for him this weekend. Florida or Auburn, the choices. He's been to Clemson and Ole Miss. Defensive back Tyon Palmer of Lawrenceville, Georgia, has had coaches from Nebraska, Northwestern, and Maryland in to see him this week. Nebraska was in Wednesday night with several coaches. Now, Clemson was expected to visit with him today. Not sure if that happened because there's been some word that he was supposed to visit Clemson this weekend. That visit might be off. So I don't know if Clemson got in or not today. And if not, that'd be certainly an indication that he's not visiting. He has been to Vanderbilt, Nebraska, and NC State. And as I said, was scheduled for Clemson this weekend. Not sure if he's going to take a visit next weekend, considering Tennessee and Alabama for that visit, or possibly he has decided to go to one of those this coming weekend. His teammate, 2019 defensive back Andrew Booth, was at Clemson for the junior day last Saturday. Defensive back Mario Goodrich of Lee's Summit, Missouri, will take an official to Clemson this weekend. He has been to LSU and Georgia. Will visit Arkansas the final weekend. Oregon has come in late on him. The Ducks DB coach came from Nebraska, where Goodrich was previously committed. Clemson's Brent Venables and Mike Reed were out to see him this week. His father, mother, and stepmother are expected to join him on the visit. Defensive end Zach Pickens of TL Hanna was offered by LSU. USC offered defensive end Hakeem Beeman of Chesterfield, Virginia. He is a North Carolina commitment. USC also offered 2020 linebacker tight end Zykevius Walker of Sharpsburg, Georgia. Clemson offered 2019 offensive lineman Nolan Rumler of Akron, Ohio, a Michigan commit. And USC target 2019 defensive end Rashad Cheney of Atlanta decommitted from Georgia today and is now open. Been a long time pledge to the Bulldogs, but now he has opened things back up. There you go with recruiting for now. Check it out continuously on our website, sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter. Use the hashtag #STRecruiting. Anything happened while I was doing that?
No,
Got a nice nap.
You know,
wow,
that kind of humor is not acceptable around here.
I think the person who used to sit in this chair used to have longer naps.
Actually, he sat over there.
Either way.
And he would take a doze, which is a shame. You
No
talk
doze.
about analytics being important. Recruiting is more important in this part of the world than analytics. You can take the analytics and shove it up your.
I wonder if the guy from
recruiting.
Is that a fact?
That's a fact.
I wonder if the guy.
I want you to
from-
sit here and talk analytics on a nightly basis and see what happens.
The only
I'll
ad-
see you in the unemployment line.
I think I'm be just fine. Actually.
I don't think so.
There are plenty of people who are making a living on analytics.
Well, they'll
Not around here.
They'll probably tell you.
Mark Kingston just signed a very nice deal to be a man who's favor analytics.
Yeah, let me give him some analytics. You don't make the NCAA tournament, you can take your briefcase and back to Tampa because it ain't going to work.
He knows more about VORP and FIP and war and all that stuff than.
See, I pay no attention to that stuff, man. That's just made up hogwash.
It's not made up hogwash.
Made up hogwash. It's made up to sell websites. That's all it's done.
It's made up to win baseball
Ain't that right,
games.
Pro? It got nothing to do with you can hit a baseball.
Because he looks at an athlete. He says he's a baseball player.
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
The slaughter of the Hogs continues in Columbia, 71-32 as they begin the fourth quarter. Wilson with 21, Jennings with 18, Jackson with 16. Are they sending out a message here? Are they?
They're playing like what they lay in. Hogs.
Yes, the Hogs are.
Yeah.
They are shooting. They're up to 27%.
That's not great, Bob.
USC's at 46%. But look at this: the rebounding difference, 49-20 for USC, including 19 offensive rebounds, 24 second chance points, 36 points in the paint, 15 assists, and turnovers only 8, but Arkansas has only turned it over 6 times. Just total domination inside for USC.
I would say South Carolina should put in the mop-up crew, but the problem is there's so many players injured on their team, they don't really have a mop-up crew.
Yeah, it's true.
No, they don't.
That's true.
It's kind of sad.
800-956-7266, the number, if you want to join us here in our final minutes of Sports Talk. Wide open for your phone calls. So a couple of things to mention. Clemson's Dorian O'Daniel's going to miss the Senior Bowl. Rib injury has knocked him out of the ball game.
Certainly so.
Big South preseason baseball poll. Winthrop voted number 1, followed by Liberty, High Point, and Radford. Campbell is 5. Presbyterian is 6. Then it's Gardner-Webb, Charleston Southern, UNC Asheville, and Longwood rounding it out. Also announced today, the coaches voted the preseason players of the year. Liberty junior outfielder DJ Artis, preseason player of the year. And Wofford junior Nate Polachek, the league's preseason pitcher of the year. Is he related to you, Polachek?
No.
It's pretty close to Pelagic.
Not quite.
He doesn't have as many Z's in his name. But you know, the end of his name is very similar to yours. His name is, his last 4 letters are CZYK. And yours are I got to practice it. PALASZCZUK.
Pawalczyk is what that I'm seeing it for the first time.
Pawalczyk,
yeah.
What'd I say?
I don't know.
Well, I think I might have said Pelagic. No, I didn't. I said Pawalczyk.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, but it's very similar to your name.
Yeah, we should go
those
have
names. Those names all kind of look alike.
We should go have Halupchi together then.
Have a little what?
Never mind.
Saw today Ian Gurin down in Myrtle Beach tweeted that the South Carolina Basketball Coaches Association is moving the Carolinas All-Star Classic basketball game from Myrtle Beach to Wilmington. So after a long run in Myrtle Beach in March, it's going to be moving to Wilmington. This is like the Shrine Bowl for basketball, the best of South Carolina versus the best of North Carolina, for the most part, for those who want to play in it. Sometimes the best skip it to go play in McDonald's or something else.
It's a sad thing for our state.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. The beach ball people had been operating that game, and for whatever reason, it's moving to Wilmington, at least for this year. It's been in Rock Hill before, been in Myrtle Beach. Now it's going to go to Wilmington for a year. It's done well, I think, in South Carolina. The game's played at Sockasty High School. It's usually up against the second day of the second round, I guess you would say, of the NCAA tournament. So a lot of basketball going on, but the interest primarily is in the NCAA tournament. So that's something to note. What you got, Pro?
No, I was just looking, just tipping off at Coastal Carolina. Kind of a tough year for Cliff Ellis at 8-13. They're hosting Arkansas State. That game is just starting, and I guess Corey Holden's old team, Delaware, trying to play the slowdown on Charleston up in Delaware tonight. It's at halftime. College of Charleston leading 25-23.
Clemson women playing at Syracuse tonight. Anybody want to update that? My guess is that's many to few as well, just like this Arkansas USC game, with Clemson having the few.
45-31, Syracuse leads at halftime.
That's closer than I thought it would be. Okay, so we look ahead to tomorrow here on Sports Talk.
You want to go to Marky Mark Kingston?
Oh, shoot.
I knew you forgot it. I was trying to.
You should have hollered at me earlier.
Well, sometimes it's hard to interrupt you because you don't shut up.
Yes. I know the feeling. Let's go to
No,
Mark
you was
Kingston, the USC baseball coach. First year, he met with the media today to give us a little preview of what's ahead starting practice tomorrow.
So it's a work in progress. I think everybody knows that Adam Hill, assuming he's healthy, will be our Friday night guy. After that, there's a lot of guys that are being evaluated over the next three weeks. You're looking at Morris. You're looking at the two freshmen, Majinski, Logan Chapman. Chris could be considered. Ridge Chapman could be considered. Gage Hinson, JUCO transfer, could be considered. So that's the main group of guys that will be looked at as starters at this point. Now it's up to them to win a job.
Mark, I know you probably don't care too much about preseason polls and stuff, but from around here, relatively low expectations, it looks like apparently. Is that something you can use as motivation, and do you welcome that almost?
Yeah. Yeah, most coaches will say, no, we don't look at that. But behind the scenes, absolutely. You can needle your guys a little bit every now and then, say, hey, they don't think much of us right now. Nationally, we're not in the D1 poll. We're not in the Baseball America poll. And those are writers that we respect very much, and their opinions at this point probably are valid based on the pitching we have coming back that they're aware of, and how we performed last year. So can we use that as a motivator? Absolutely we can. To me, I think it's a good place. It's a good place to start. They think we can be a good team, but they're not quite sure that we're elite yet. Our job as coaches and players is to get elite as quickly as we can.
Mark, you lose Tyler Johnson as your closer from last year. Who do you kind of expect to slide into that position, or are you going to try out a few different guys?
Yeah, much like our starters, that's to be determined. When you don't return guys in roles, then you have to put them in those situations and see who handles it best. Eddie Demurius is obviously one of the guys we'll look at there. Rich Chapman is a guy we'll look at there. Sawyer Bridges thus far has looked really good, and he may have the stuff and the makeup to be a guy that can be looked at. We'll have options. It's just a matter of who is the best option, and that's what the next 3 weeks is for, is to try to figure that out.
When evaluating your roster, you had a pretty good idea of what you had coming in and what you had recruited. Who in particular has opened your eyes since you've been here and given you something you didn't expect? That's
a good question. I just think there's no one person that jumps out. I look at a lot of our guys. I look at our offense as a group, as a group, they will take a big step. So I don't think it's just one or two guys. I think a lot of guys will be better. I expect Adam Hill to take that next step as a pitcher, to be a Friday night guy. It's harder to be a Friday night guy than a Saturday guy or a Sunday guy. So I expect him to take a big jump. But in terms of any one guy that has stepped up and been a lot different than I expected, no, I've just seen a good natural progression of improvement for our guys as a whole.
Have you leaned on Ray very much to get you to this point? And if so, as the season moves on, will you go to him very much to talk baseball philosophies and strategies and that sort of thing?
I mean, I think you'd be foolish to ignore what Ray Tanner is as a baseball guy. But by the same token, and I've said this from the beginning, I think we need to do things that got us here. I'll lean on him maybe for, how do you deal with the ups and downs of playing in the SEC, or tell me your thoughts on recruiting within the state. Things that I don't have a feel for, that's where I go to him for. When it comes to baseball or training players or how to prepare for a game, I mean, I feel like we have a good handle on that, but in areas where I just don't have experience, that's where I would go to Ray. And he's been, as you might imagine, tremendous with any time I have questions.
Okay, Mark Kingston, his opening presser. The Gamecocks will begin practice tomorrow, as will other Division I baseball teams across the country. I think they've got some scrimmages this weekend.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Monty Lee meets with the media at Clemson tomorrow. We'll have some of that for you here on Sports Talk. Plus, Brad Brownell previews the Tigers game against Georgia Tech on Sunday.
We'll have some Gamecock men's basketball players as well to preview their weekend matchup with the Red Raiders of Texas Tech.
Okay, and we will continue to watch what's happening in the golf tournament out on the West Coast, update more recruiting for you as things are happening, and generally just have another dynamite show for you. Trying to break that microphone?
No.
I mean, you want to pay for it?
No.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't be doing that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Pro. And thank you, Brian. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.